Welcome to Real Time Recorder, everybody. I'm ZS Caravala, and I'm back for week 25 of 2022 with Dave Michaels. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. I'm doing better than you. I had my COVID like a month ago.
Yeah, I had mine recently this week. Obviously with all the trade shows I've been to, I had to skip a couple this week. It wasn't too bad though. It was a little drowsy, still able to get out cycling and things like that. So, I think it's one of those things that's fact of life now. We're all going to get it maybe once, twice, three times in our life.
It doesn't seem to be ever going away. I mean, where the cases are going up. What's going away is the death rates,
Yeah.
or the mortality rate is declining. I don't think I think COVID's here forever. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we're still both alive, so I guess that's what counts, huh?
That's what counts.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the news. We got a couple of stories actually from Zoom this week. Yes.
Yeah, the first one was the release of their Apps SDK that lets customers build apps within the Zoom ecosystem. They had SDKs for AI. You can build interactive applications, voice applications, and we've talked about the growth of Zoom, and the future of Zoom is really to become a platform company. It's hard to become a platform company without these apps, and they of course or the SDKs. They have of course created their app store, right? The Zoom app marketplace, and obviously you need to be able to fuel that with applications, and this leads itself to that. So to me, this is just kind of the next logical step in that progression for Zoom to become a platform vendor.
Yeah, a lot of vendors have SDKs, but it's unusual for them to build an SDK actually into their own client, so that you can use the Zoom client as your launchpad. That's interesting. I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm not surprised, but I'm kind of surprised that these clients are still around. 10 years ago with WebRTC and all that stuff, I was thinking clients are going to be doomed. But WebEx has a client, Teams has a client, Zoom has a client, RingCentral has a client, and so clients seem to be alive and well on the desktop. I understand they're alive and well on the smartphone, but I thought they would have gone away on the desktop. I know most of my stuff is in a web browser now, but the client persists.
Yeah, and I think there's two ways to think about. Like, to me, the user should be able to feel free to work in whatever app they want, and so you have the ability to launch Zoom from other apps, and this gives customers the ability to launch apps from within Zoom, and I think that kind of bi-directional type of interoperability does make some sense.
Yeah, I will say that, I just rattled off all those vendors. I will say that some are better at the web interface than others.
Oh yeah.
And so we won't name names necessarily there, but I do like to use the web app a lot. And as you know, I travel a lot with my Chromebook, and I can't install a Teams client or on the Chromebook. Maybe you can through Android. I'm not sure, but so I often end up using the website, which is why I'm not sure. I just use the website. But Zoom also announced a new bundling practice, Zoom One. What do you think of that one?
Well, this I suppose was destined to come as they've expanded their portfolio, right? That pre-pandemic Zoom was pretty simple. It was a meetings client. Since then they've added, well, they had rooms too, but now they've added phone, they got contact center, they got all these different products now. And I think they're trying to make it easier for customers to buy. That's obviously the bundles. 5 bundles, though, to me seems like a lot. I think that's, I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's a lot of different options. But I suppose, there's
so
lots.
You don't call it Zoom One, you call it Zoom 5.
It is Zoom 5, right? Well, it's 5 different options. You can start with free all the way up to a pro, and there's a bunch of different options in between. And there are different buying personas, right, or user personas, and so I suppose you have to match that up. But to me, it did seem like a lot of options for a company that prides itself on being simple. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on this.
Well, I think this is a lot of it is having to how to compete with Microsoft, because people have this perception that the Microsoft suite is free because they're going to buy it for Microsoft Word, and then everything else is free on top of that.
Yeah.
And so the vendors have to be kind of aggressive. They have to bundle. And so I think the Zoom One Business Plus package, it's like $21 a month, and you get meetings, phone, whiteboard, chat. It's a pretty rich package for $21. Now, of course, that's That's assuming you have lots and lots of users, so not all users use it as much as others. But it's aggressive, and I think it's the only way you really can respond to the Microsoft bundle. So
Yeah, I don't know why
um,
Microsoft finally gets called out on their free. Not really, they have the most expensive free product around, but it does have a lot of cachet with IT buyers.
and none of the Microsoft bundles actually include phone, which
No,
is kind of interesting. And so this one actually does include phone, so that's good, I guess. But
yeah.
so yeah, we're gonna see. What do you think? Are we gonna see a race to the bottom here? Prices gonna keep on going down,
Well,
or are
that's
we?
sort of the interesting juxtaposition of contact center versus UC that I talk about all the time. On the contact center side, it seems like when you add features, you can raise your price. On the UC side, it seems like you got to continually add features just to be able to hold the price steady, right? And I think it was Becky Carr when she was CMO at Avaya who used the phrase that UC is one big sea of sameness, right? And I think it's largely proven out that way. That's why you see more and more vendors just loading their clients up. I mean, look at Cisco, right? Like how much stuff you get for $10 a month, right? It's a pretty full featured client, including.
Yeah, I really like what Amazon did, and this is in the contact center, but with their usage-based pricing, and I think we're
Yes.
going to see a lot more of the usage-based pricing, because the usage-based pricing is the opposite, right? So the more features they add, the more you use it, and then the more you pay. Where on the current model, the more features you add, you basically don't pay more. And so that's going to be problematic for a lot of providers that keep on adding more and more features and can't figure out how to monetize it. Where Amazon's actually monetizing more features.
Yeah, I've been expecting other vendors to switch to that model. I know when I talk to Connect customers, that it's a little bit of a strange change initially because you wind up with this very lumpy pricing. But when you look at it over the course of a year, especially for seasonal businesses, it winds up being more cost effective. So I've been expecting the industry to shift that way. It hasn't, but I suspect that most of the vendors will have to adopt that kind of price model sometime.
Well, let's get to another story here this week. We saw 8x8 enhance, I guess is the proper word, their Microsoft strategy with Microsoft Teams. It's called the 8x8 Elevate program for Microsoft partners. It's
Yeah,
aimed at
the
Microsoft
partners.
partners, so that they can, so partners can have easier path to complement Teams with 8x8 XT edition for telephony. I have mixed feelings about this one, Zias. What do you think?
Well, they did provide an update too that they passed 200,000 8x8 voice for Teams users. I think for the 8x8 partners, it does make some sense. You wind up being on the partner page. It includes a bunch of spiffs. There's co-marketing activities, MDFs, access to executive roundtables. They announced, I think CDW is their launch partner. So if you're gonna, if you're gonna be in the Teams game, that is gonna flow through your channel, and you need to round out your channel program, and that's what they've done here. So and I find the whole Teams interoperability and route team calling stuff fascinating because Dave, how many vendors have told us that they have the best interoperability with Microsoft? Right, all
Direct
of them.
routing as a service.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, Zias, but Talking Points actually offers the best direct routing as a service for Microsoft Teams.
I actually
Um,
asked Microsoft once who has the best interoperability. You know what they said? Nobody. They said by Teams with the Teams calling. So
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's why I have
yeah,
mixed feelings about this. I understand there's an opportunity here because the 8x8 can offer more robust telephony, more global telephony, and more features and stuff like that. So I understand what they're doing, but I also understand that Microsoft's continuously improving and innovating, and they're dancing with a partner that doesn't really want to dance with them, as far as I can tell. So I understand the opportunity. I understand why companies like 8x8 are doing this and going after this opportunity, but I also just feel, I'd like to talk more about how 8x8 is innovating in different ways than this. That's
well,
that's
that's
my
the low
opinion.
hanging fruit in the Teams, right? If there's one thing that Teams doesn't do well, it's calling, and so everybody's jumped on that bandwagon of being able to provide calling for Teams. And frankly, if you can stay ahead of Microsoft in calling, which isn't very hard, there's an opportunity there. So, people have asked me when I think Microsoft will actually reach par with the other vendors in calling, and I still think they're a few years away from it. So,
Well, the answer is whatever they want to.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line answer. When they choose to, right? We choose not to, and so yeah, and right now Microsoft's actually benefiting very well from this because you've got companies like 8x8 and Ring, and you've got all the providers, BT and Verizon. Everybody kind of saying, hey, we make Teams better, and so Microsoft loves this. They're benefiting from this whole ecosystem of everybody kind of endorsing Teams, but at some point they will choose to do better without these partners, and I think we've seen this. We've seen how this
Yeah, it's
plays
an
out.
interesting, case for Microsoft because in some ways, by the partners doing that, it cements Microsoft in there as the messaging platform, right? And so Microsoft, they make a little bit more money by selling voice because they up your license, but I don't know, maybe it's better for them to leave the status quo, let the partner provide the calling. They don't get really any competition on the messaging side. They own the data. They can do a lot of cool things with it. And if you give up the voice to a partner, so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to our third story, which is actually kind of similar story to what we had a few weeks ago with another provider, but Intermedia. Intermedia announced Intermedia Interaction Analytics, AI-based analytics. Have you ever heard of this before, Zeus?
I think we just had something like that from Dialpad a little while ago. But from an intermediate perspective, what they're trying to do is basically capture customer sentiment by automating the recognition of keywords and phrases and sentiment and things like that from customer interactions, and that can help actually be able to get real-time insight to customer satisfaction on a per-call basis, right? And that's sort of the holy grail. The traditional "I'll call you back" method. I know you're a United 1K, I'm a United 1K, and whenever we call United, it says, "Do you wish to be called back?" Do you ever say yes? Right? And so that's
Usually when I'm calling, I got an impending issue. Yeah,
yeah.
but
And so that's not a
no.
very efficient way to do this. And so I think it's a great use case for AI to solve a problem that was largely unsolvable before without it, right? There's just no way you could find a mechanism to survey all of your users if with in a way that wasn't intrusive. Now it just simply analyzes the way you talk, how you say it. Dave, I know your demeanor, you're going to come back as negative, as a poor customer experience on every call you have, so you might skew things lower. So,
Uh, you know, I first off, congratulations, Intermedia. I think this is an
yeah,
important feature, and it's becoming a must-have. Right, you have to have this. But at the same time, I was just at CCW Contact Center, Customer Contact Week, whatever they call it. Every single vendor, it doesn't take more than 30 seconds in a conversation to get to AI, right? And it doesn't matter if you're talking to a CCaaS provider. It doesn't matter if you're talking to a workforce engagement solution. It doesn't matter if you're talking to add-on tools that go into the contact center. And it's the same in UCaaS. Everything is AI. Everything is AI. And I think that it is becoming kind of a standard requirement. So you have to have a pretty good AI capability, and I suspect Intermedia does. But I don't know how people like us or even end users are supposed to differentiate these products. I don't understand when everybody's saying the exact same things. We score for sentiment, we record every call, we look at every call, you can flag calls for training, etc. I don't understand how we're supposed to evaluate these. I'm sure there's going to be a way, and it's maybe for us, you and I, to figure out how to do this. But it's beginning to sound a lot like everyone's got the same thing.
yeah. Well, I guess you got to run a bunch of synthetic calls through it and see which ones are pick up certain sentiments or try and randomly test them and things like that. But you're right. It's an awful lot of faith companies are putting in these automated systems, and if they're not, then the success largely is based on the training. The interesting thing too is because it's AI based, you could test today or evaluate today, and a year from now get dramatically different results because of how the algorithms are trained, right? So, in some ways, it's an ongoing process that companies have to go through.
Yeah. I would like to see more of the conversation shift to how to make the AI work for you, or pitfalls for the AI. Or I want to hear these individual providers talking more about their expertise in making it work and being successful. I'm getting kind of numb with we do this. We all have the same type of thing, but we're still in the early stages, and not every company has this. We talked about Dialpad, we talked about Intermedia. A lot of UCaaS companies don't have it yet, so we're still in the early stages. But I'm just kind of ready now for the next level, the next level of maturity. But anyway, I think that wraps up the news for what was it? We said week 25.
25, yeah.
Halfway through almost halfway through the year. One more week, we're halfway through the year, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Real Time Recorded.
Thank you. See ya.